Hello, everybody, and welcome to United Stand. It's our last fan forum before Christmas. I hope you're all in a festive mood. We've got lots to talk about tonight. And for a bit of fun, it's not the end of the year show, but it is the last one before Christmas. We are going to be taking some of your questions a little bit later on. And we're going to have a bit of a chat about best 11 under Rangnick going into these second half of the season. But we're going to start off with Rangnick's transfer priority. A bit of news. Obviously, we've been linked to Alvarez. I think it's Julian Alvarez, isn't it? I mean, I put my hands up. I don't know anything about him. Levin, do you know anything about this lad?
Tiny bit. Typical. I've used him in Football Manager, so the scope of my knowledge about him is limited to games to an extent. But I have read about him a fair amount. So
go on then, Levin. You're going to start off then. Give us a minute or so on what Alvarez is, because I've done it on a morning show, and I've gone, he could be the next Messi, like everyone is out of Argentina, or he could be a bit more like Aguero and a striker. So what type of player is he? Because just to let everybody know, we've been linked quite heavily to him from quite credible outlets in Argentina, but we don't know whether there's anything in it yet. But Levin's now going to tell us what he knows from Football Manager. And research, not Football Manager.
Don't tell them the football. They're going to call me a Football Manager merchant now. No, to be honest, it's not much. I think the one thing I would say is that he's quite young, right? Which is obviously the exciting thing. He's a very hard-working striker. Is the one thing I've read about him quite a bit. There's clearly sort of like a high ceiling there. Of course, I know this. I've seen some people comparing it. Well, look, we went into the South American market with Palestri and whatnot. I think with Alvarez, he's someone that's a step ahead because he's been playing consistently first team in South America, and he's shown promise there. And the most important thing is that it goes in line with the types of signings that Rangnick is sort of known for, in that, once again, dropping the age of the squad, right? You're bringing in someone young who you have time now to implement your idea and push him throughout his career. And considering as well that Alvarez is already someone that is quite a hard-working person, like as a player, I think it works perfectly. I don't expect him to come in and be like instant impact for us. Like, I feel like it's more so planning like a Cavani replacement early on, not because he's the same type of player as Cavani, but just because with Cavani leaving at the end of the season, you bring in this young guy who maybe if you wait till summer, there's going to be other clubs who can maybe offer him more first team playing time that would be in for him, and maybe he'd choose to go there instead. So that's the way I see it with Alvarez right now.
Interesting. Thanks for that, Levin. Well, we'll develop that, because what I wanted to talk about was that if we are in for Alvarez, he's a striker. We know that Cavani, I've been watching the shows this week, Adams was talking about this morning, Martial's going to go, Cavani. I suppose the question, I'll go to you, Beth, on this one first. How are you this evening?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Midfield, do you think this is the right deal to do, to go for a young, up-and-coming striker who's hard-working, who will fit the system? Because we're only going to buy one player in January, so it's a decision. Do you go for that striker, who maybe Rangnick's had an eye on for a while, like Levin said, even before he came to United? Or would you rather see us go for a midfielder if it's a one-shot hit?
Why only one player can we buy? No, I'm joking.
Well, it might be a new United. I don't think it's going to be that new.
Well, in an ideal world, I'd go for two, because I actually do really like the look of this guy. Obviously, I've not seen much of him. I don't know much of him at all until it came into the news, but I've been looking at him. And you know what? When you think about it, in the summer, he's a name that comes in. He's not going to expect to play every game. You can build him up, but him and Greenwood can kind of switch out of that forward role for while Ronaldo's here. And then possibly, if he excels even more, it could be him and Greenwood as the two strikers. You don't know. He might be that good to be able to go on and do that. And he's cheap as well. So I think it'd be a good deal to do. But if you're asking me what I would rather do in January, a midfielder is key. I've said it time and time again. I don't think we can play the rest of the season and hit the heights we want to hit if we've only got McFred in the midfield. And the way Rangnick wants to play, it looks like he wants to go with them two of them type of players in that two, the first two before the other two in that 2-2. So I think you do need a CDM. You've got to go out and buy one. Even if one of them gets injured, is Matic or is Donny going to be able to come in and play the way he wants them to? I think Van der Beek is very capable, but it looks like he wants a more defensive type player. So a CDM is massive for us. And playing 2 games a week, playing Champions League football, I think that's the position you've got to go for, and possibly look at the striker in the summer, because we've heard that I think Romano was on the show and he said he'd be very surprised if we let Cavani and Martial go in January. So it looks like Martial's going to go. Cavani will probably see out the rest of his contract. So we're not desperate for a striker now. So if you were going to get your attention to one in January, it would have to be the midfielder for me. We've just got such a lack of options in that department.
Yeah, Adam, I mean, I suppose there's three choices, isn't there, really? He either brings a midfielder in, he brings a forward in, maybe this Alvarez, or he brings nobody in. And people will say, well, don't bring nobody in. That's the worst choice. But actually, the January transfer window might be that, as we know, it's an opportunist window. He might go, well, because Kamara is an option. Maybe that Hadir is an option from Leipzig. But he might go, and I think we heard today from, I can't remember who it was one of the UK journalists saying that he admires Bellingham and Rice. Well, that no matter how much you admire them, you might. Sorry, Levin.
It was Laurie Whitwell. Just if people wanted to know who it was.
Yeah. So I mean, Laurie has got good connections with the club. I mean, I almost feel like he is a Man United journalist most of the time because he's just it is that way. But I mean, those two players would be very difficult to get in the summer, Adam. So what if you're Rangnick in this situation? What are you looking at? Do you agree with Beth that the midfield's the priority, or do you even think, well, I'd wait till the summer and get my midfielder and go for a forward, or just leave it how it is and you've got a massive squad?
Yeah, nice for everyone to say well said, Adam. I've not said anything yet, guys.
Just the eyes and everything.
Yeah. I've got to look. I'm sort of just making my point across with my eyes or something like that. I'm thinking, what did I say? Anyway, I honestly, with these signings, the Alvarez guy, South American one, honestly, I couldn't give a toss. I really couldn't, to be honest with that. It is one of them that's just going to get muted around noises. And if he does come in, Diego Forlan type of signing, it's not really for me. I think we're at a stage now where we need to make sure we're getting players in the right position. Do you know what I mean? Beth nailed it there with the midfield. It has to be midfield. I talked about this earlier on in terms of strikers leaving. We don't need strikers. We don't need any strikers. Some of our young strikers in our youth system are probably better than half the people being mentioned coming in. So there's a big issue in midfield. So I would say, look, don't buy anyone in January unless it's the man who's going to go forward. And I made this point earlier on in the show this morning. I said, look, this January transfer window is going to be a big indicator of where Ralf Rangnick sees himself in this hot seat as the manager of Manchester United. Because if he brings in 2 or 3, I can't see any manager bringing in 2 or 3 players thinking he's only going to be there for another 5 months or whatever it's going to be from now. He's thinking longer term. And I do believe that the next manager is in line, and I think communications will be going on behind the scene. But still, 2 or 3 signings, I don't see that happening. 1 even, I'd be very surprised. I don't think that I honestly would see outgoings in January. I don't see much coming in. I really don't. I don't think the right midfield is there for us right now. We could say there's better midfielders than what we've got, but is that really what we need? We need the best in class in that position. We've been crying out for it for so long. I would just wait until the summer to make sure we get the right man in that position. We've got more than enough to get top 4. We're not going to win the league from this position. Let's get top 4. I think we can get that with what we've got in this squad at the moment. And then we make that push in the summer, whether it be with Ralf, whether it be with the new manager. I want the midfielder to be the most important signing that this club has made. So I wouldn't be surprised if it went crazy in January, but it scares me a little bit because I've never really liked the January transfer window for signings, and that midfield role is massive. It really is. I just think we need to make sure we get it bang on.
I think it's intriguing because, I'm not going to knock Bellingham and Rice. I think you get one of those two, it's very exciting, and they're both very, very young. But then I think, well, listening to what Levin was saying there, and I've had this thought myself, Rangnick, Bellingham and Rice, not sure they're his sort of signings. And I think his sort of signings might be a Kamara from Marseille or a Hadir from Leipzig, who are, the sort of Leicester signings that nobody really goes for. And then they become the Ndidis and the Kantes. And I bet this Samari is going to become good. We spoke about him for a couple of years. So, and they are available in January. I suppose, Levin, it just depends on how much the club trusts Rangnick and whether he trusts going for that type of a player at Manchester United, because it's different to Leipzig.
Yeah, and when you look at the January transfer market, I associate two things with it typically. Either extreme amounts of planning or extremely under-planned, because either you end up in a situation where, you know, maybe you go, oh, okay, let's get this player now in January instead of summer, just because let's get ahead of time, you know, make sure we're not in a bidding war in summer. So, you know, you're planning ahead. Or it's actually, oh, we didn't realize we might need something here. Okay, January, can we, you know, scramble and find anything? Or maybe it's just been an injury of some sort and you need to find someone to bring in. You know what I mean? So what happens in this winter for us will be very telling of what we are. And typically it's not been you know, we've not been a club where we can say, oh, we've planned very well. So yeah, if we are going to be in for players, I would expect it to be, you know, any of those players we've been linked to in terms of the Kamaras and whatnot. Yeah, you could argue the Kamaras, like the more unknown people are like more associated with what Rangnick is. But at the same time, I think one thing that people probably don't give Rangnick enough credit for is the fact that even at Leipzig with the job he did, and it's very different to United, but even at Leipzig, there would have been very much certain commercial priorities that he would have been asked to prioritize, in that they were a club that was very small and wanted to grow. And being at United, that is going to be something as well. I think Rangnick will have a big influence. I still won't be surprised if there is an element of, oh, but, you know, maybe, you know, Rice or Bellingham is better because they align more with the young British players we have in, or they're bigger brands, or they're already England. You know, these kind of things. I still think an element of that will creep in regardless of who you have in charge of the club, just because as a club, you know, the owners will feel they have certain commercial responsibilities, etc. But I just hope that we go from doing that and making the wrong decisions and actually making the right ones. Because even like with certain players, you still would go, okay, that's still the right decision. Like if we had a pathway to actually get Bellingham, I know it's not going to happen. I'm not saying it is, but even if we had an actual pathway, people would still probably go, okay, yeah, like I get it's expensive, maybe it's a bit of a price, but this guy is like a real serious talent. Like it makes sense. Like that's not a bad signing. Whereas we've done that in the past and made the bad signing at times, or made a signing that wasn't actually great.
Yeah, I think it's. I think you're right. I think the January transfer window is either planned or not planned, and I suppose the hope with Rangnick is, unlike Ollie, I think you could wander into a January transfer window, crap yourself because you lose a couple of players, and go, oh, I'll just buy anything. Whereas I hope, and probably pretty much know, Rangnick will come with a book of talent and be like, you know, this might be an idea. We'll have to wait and see. But I suppose the worry is, Beth, as it always is, I don't know where you'd seen these comments, and picking up with what Adam said there about how long Rangnick's going to be here, my hope is that Rangnick's not just here for 6 months. You know, whether he's the manager or not is a debate we'll be having over the next weeks and months. But even if he's not the manager, I would hope he becomes an accompaniment to Murta in how the club is run over the next 2 or 3 years. Because if the board is still making the decisions over Rangnick, we heard from Murta in a fan forum recently say that Manchester United wanted to give Ollie as much time as possible, and that's why we gave him the Watford game. But obviously it went really bad, and we know what that international break was like. I don't know what your thoughts were about that, but, you know, it was, you know, the fan base was demanding change, and that board were, no, let's give him a chance. And if it's that board again, we can't be asleep on the fact that bad decisions can still happen.
Well, that's the thing. That board has had a history of very bad decisions. So I think the best option for them, it'll make them look better as well, if they do bring Rangnick in to help them make the decisions, to have that role. And do you know what? He's got the experience to back it up. The way he's built these clubs up, his transfer business. We've seen the players that he's brought in at low prices before anyone knew about him, and what they've gone on to do through his coaching and through his recruitment and scouting. He's not just come in as an inexperienced manager and just picking and choosing players. He's got a good scouting network, he's got contacts, and I think it's very important for Manchester United to have someone like that within the club. Whether he stays on as a coaching role for over 6 months, I'm not sure that'll happen. I think it depends how he performs within the next 6 months, and whether his systems fits perfectly, whether we go on to do well, whether the fans are impressed, whether we actually start putting some wins together, get Champions League. All of these things get taken into consideration. But even if he doesn't stay on as manager, I think it's very important to have someone with his know-how in the club. Since he's come in, he's brought in a sports psychologist. The fact we didn't have one of them before is extremely worrying. He knows what it takes, and he's had that experience in the past. So I think it's extremely important. And touching on what Levin said there is options there. I mean, I know what Adam means when he says we need to get the perfect recruitment. We don't want to buy someone and then regret it and then we've got to go and buy again. But there is players out there that are cheaper, that haven't yet become the next big thing, that Rangnick will be all over as well through his scouting networks. And I think it's really important, if he is going to stay at the club and he is going to manage recruitment, he's going to help them decide who the next manager is, that they show that trust in Rangnick and they show the trust in his experience. And they do, because he is definitely going to want a midfielder in January. We've seen it out there, and anyone who comes into that club as a manager is going to know that they need a midfielder. So I think they need to trust in him on what he wants. And as well, you can see then if we buy this midfielder that he wants, what he can do, what he can bring to the club through his recruitment. So I think it's important that they just trust him and back him. And I think that's the reason they brought him in. If you're bringing someone in, you've got to show that trust in them. And I definitely think that's what the board need to do, especially looking at their history of decisions. They've not made great ones. So trusting someone else who actually has that experience is really important.
We need him to find another Kimmich. He finds another Kimmich and we're laughing. That's all you've got to do, Ralf. Find us another Kimmich and that'll be fantastic. But no, I think it would be very interesting. And look, I said it today. We've got a lot of games coming up, and we've got a lot of a very active January transfer window, and then we've got a decision about what we're going to do with our manager. So the next few months are going to be fantastic, and I'm looking forward to 2022. With Manchester United, much more than I thought I would be 6 weeks ago. We are going to, in the second half of the show, get into your questions. So get ready for those, because we'll be putting that to the panel and we'll all answer that. But one thing I did want to talk about was from Rangnick's press conference today. He spoke about the 5 substitution rule that he hopes he's going to bring in, because it means he can give more playing time. More playing time when you look at those players that need more playing time that probably aren't first teamers at the moment. Your Pogbas, your Lingards, your Donny van der Beeks, your Bays. We've got 4 fullbacks. How do you think that's going to work, Adam, over the next few months with all these games? What I don't want to individualize it. In fact, what we'll do in a minute, I'll go through a list of players and then you three can say yes or no, whether they'll be here this time next year. But how do you see Rangnick managing that set of players, 25 basically senior players over the next 4 or 5 months? And, the way he handles those players obviously will have a big impact on what happens in the summer transfer window. Do you think he will give first team time to Pogba and Lingard and Bailly and Donny, or do you think we still will see people just on the periphery?
I think it's going to play into his hands in how he puts his system across. 5 substitutes. I mean, we discussed on a show, I think it was last week, how we move forward. And I think the 5 substitute rule was definitely one that was coming back in. I think it's going to be needed, especially with players returning from COVID, and fitness level is going to be up, down, all over the place. I think it's right. I think we'll benefit from it, because we just talked then about the massive squad that we've got. And if he needs fresh legs up top, if he needs fresh legs in midfield, then he's going to be able to use it. He's going to be able to use the 5 substitutes. I mean, even Ole was forced to play Donny and Sancho in Europe when he had 5 substitutes. So now you've got a tactician and you've got a manager in who knows what he wants, and he can utilise that even more. I do believe we're going to see game time for pretty much every single player, because he's going to have to rest the players that are working harder than they've ever worked before while being at Man United. It's like the Freds and McTominays. They can't keep going 2 games a week doing what they're doing and how Rangnick wants them to play. We're going to have to change that up. It's going to have to be a time when Matic comes in, because Matic is going in the summer, but while he's here, you would use Matic. He's going to come in as well. If Pogba's there, I hate talking about it, but you're just going to use him, aren't you? He's going to use him, and what will happen in the summer will happen in the summer. But if he helps us get back into that top 4 comfortably and we get Champions League for the next season, whether it be under Rangnick or under the new manager, then thank you. See you later in the summer. So to answer the question, mate, I do think we are going to see everyone. I mean, Jesse, well, that's another story. I do actually see Jesse going in January, even though he says he's not. I can see a loan or something going like that for Jesse, because I think he'll just want the game time, and I don't think he's going to get as much as what he wants under Rangnick. So I think it'll maybe a loan with a view to going permanently like he wants to. He said he wants to leave in the summer. I don't see him fighting for his place unless he surprises me. But everyone else in that team, I honestly do see get given a chance. And I think Rangnick will use the 5 substitutes to really, it'll push us more than a lot of other teams because we have got this massive squad like other teams haven't got. So I'd say us, Chelsea, City, maybe Liverpool haven't got as big a squad, but they will utilise it and it will be looked on by the smaller clubs as an advantage to the bigger clubs. But ultimately, I think it's a rule that will come in anyway because it has to. And possibly, mate, we may even see the likes of Elanga get more game time through this sort of five substitute rule. And we may see some of the other younger players coming through on certain games, like midweek games and stuff like that, when it's 2 games a week. We may see some of the academy players come through as well. So I think it's going to benefit us. It's definitely going to benefit Rangnick and how he wants to play because we all know it's high energy, it's high press, and it does need freshening up every now and then. And if you can do it in a game, well, more the merrier, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess what you need, Levin, is what we'll probably see in the fullback situations is where I think I know what some sections of our fan base are like. Delo and Tellez play get out our club, Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw. But I think what we're actually going to see is very clear rotation between those. I think it'll almost become hard to tell who the first choice fullback is. Maybe in the bigger games, you'll see when we're playing Man City, he'll pick his number 1. But I think we'll see strong rotation there. And the interesting thing will be how we see that in the other areas. Certainly for me, I think the most interesting is probably the centre-backs because Maguire and Varane are going to be number 1 and 2. But I'd love to see Bailly get a bit of chance. And I think that, the bad thing about this COVID break is that I felt Bailly was probably our best centre-back after that Chelsea game. Obviously, Carrick drops him straight away for Maguire. But with Varane now back, Bailly drops down to 4th choice. And he's got to be one player in the summer that will probably be saying, I want to go.
Yeah, but look, I want to disagree with what you said earlier before you started talking about Bailly, just because I don't actually think it will be this whole rotation thing. I don't know if he can afford for it to be that. Of course, where need be because of just fixtures and whatnot. But so far, he's been very strict in terms of, the lineup we've seen. And it's clear he's tried to sort of, use what worked with Carrick and just sort of build off of that and see what he can create with that. But ultimately, this is still a man who has something to prove. This is still a man who very much wants to have more influence. And it's clear from everything we know that how he does in this 6 months will somewhat determine what that 2 years looks like, whether that be him staying on as manager, whether that means him having influence at a, director level, whatever. It's going to be dependent on what sort of happens. And so he's going to have to start being a bit selfish in terms of, all right, look, you are just what I want. You are just, whether that be whoever, it could be anyone on the pitch. Maybe he does go, you know what, Delo, you are what I need at right back right now. Sorry, Aaron, but we got to try push for top 4, whatever it is, right? And I think eventually we're going to start to see who his quote unquote favorites are, right? And who are the players he starts to trust now and who are the players he actually believes he can make something of moving forward. And I'd like to hope that he would be selfish because if he is, then the idea would be that benefits us because hopefully we're getting better results out of that. But yeah, at the same time, he does have to worry about how he manages certain players because he can't completely isolate certain players. Some players won't be sold and are locked into deals. And so, you can't just isolate them from the team completely. You still got to make use of them. So how he maneuvers that will be interesting. But I don't think he's not got a reputation of being a bad man manager by any means. So I don't think we should start to worry about that. But I would expect to see him start to play his lineup more and more as the months sort of go on.
I quite like the idea of that. I mean, I think it just emphasizes a point that many of us probably have forgotten already, is that he's only really trained this team for a week. He's only really managed it twice because the young boys wasn't his first team. And he's very much probably just gone with what Carrick was doing and Ollie was doing, and it'd be very surprising if he stuck with that. So the evolution, I think, is something that everyone would love to see get involved in. Right, well, I want you to all to start thinking in the back of your head what your best 11 is for United over the next few months, and we'll see how that plans out. In your mind, what your best 11 is, not what Rangnick's is, so what your best 11 is. And you can change the system if you want, but obviously it helps if it's something to do with what Rangnick's doing. We will get into some of your questions in a minute, but I did say I wanted to just go through a number of players just to play a little bit of a game, and Beth's going to start us off with this one. I'm going to give you about 5 or 6 players, and you're all going to go, well, I'm going to ask you whether they'll be here in a year. and it'd be interesting to see what your answers are. So we'll start off with you, Beth. And I'm not going to start off with the one people think I'm going to start off with. I'm actually going to start off with Jesse Lingard, because I disagree with Adam. I think Lingard will stay. And only till the summer, so I'm not answering the question for you. I think he will stay till the summer in the hope that he gets on, does a couple of goals like he did against West Ham, gets a deal, and they say to him, you're part of my plans. Because I think Jesse's just desperate to play to Manchester United. And I think you could sit him in a room and say, you're never going to be a first-team player at United, but if he gets a hint of it, he'll sign a contract. Do you think he'll be here in a year, Beth, and why?
No, I don't know. The thing is, I used to think that Jesse might end up staying, especially when he kind of stayed when he was going to go to West Ham in the summer, and Ollie probably told him a few fibs about what his game time was going to be this season. But if you're a player like Jesse, you're coming to the... I mean, he's like 29 now. It's not the start of his career. He's coming towards the end of... Not the end of his career, but it's towards the back end of it. You want to be playing first-team football. He's been in and out of the United team for years now, years on end. He's never nailed down a consistent spot. He's not going to nail down a consistent spot. He's a good player that could do very well in the Premier League, for example, like he did at West Ham. He just can't get in front of Bruno Fernandes, which is his main position, and Bruno's here to stay. There's other players that would be in ahead of him as well. And I think as a super sub, sometimes he'd be great. But even sometimes now he's not getting subbed on. So it's like, where really does he stand? And I think if you're Jesse, if you have anything about you and you want to play football, you want to be an established professional playing football every week, scoring goals. He was winning Player of the Month at West Ham. He will leave. And I think he'll leave on the free in summer, to be honest. So I don't think he'll be it. I don't think he'll be it.
Do you think he's doing a Pogba then? Do you think he's just running his contract down to get the best offer he can in the summer? And, which potentially... You can understand why Pogba's doing it, because he's going to go to the World Cup in December. But Jesse probably needs, between now and May, first team to enhance his World Cup. I think it's a dangerous game to play.
I do. I do think it is slightly dangerous, but he might think in his head that he can win over Gareth Southgate if he starts next season. I mean, there still is a little bit of time. He was very close at the Euros. You don't know. I mean, the fact he's not going in January, and when I spoke to Romano, for me, the reason he's not going in January is because no one wants to buy him out of his contract before he leaves on a free, apart from Newcastle, and I think he rates himself higher than Newcastle.
Yeah,
so I think Newcastle is what has been offered, and he's like, could get relegated. He's not fancying that. So that's why I think he said he wants to fight for his spot. I think realistically, he's not got many options because everyone knows his contract ends in the summer. And I think he is doing a Pogba, which, you know what, can you really blame the player? He's been, again, probably promised game time, not been given it. He's just not good enough for the first team. So he's going to run down his contract, I think. And I think he'll go on a free to a team like Everton, Leicester possibly, West Ham in the summer, and that's what will happen. I just don't think he has them options right now.
Okay, let's whiz through some more because I want to get on some of the questions. We've got some good ones already to put to the panel. But Adam, then quickly, year from now, Jesse gone or here?
No, gone. Simple. Do you want to be a bit part player because that's all you're going to be, or do you rate yourself, which he clearly does, sticking up West Ham shirts on social media, doing all this? I think his time at United is done. He's like you said, Mark, simply because he can get a good deal for nothing. Everyone's going to wait to get that good deal, which is why I said if he did go on loan, it probably made sense. He'd get the game time to then get into Southgate's sort of eye line. But I do believe, like, I think it was what you said, Mark or Beth, I can't remember which one of you said it, but this is Gareth Southgate. And if Jesse Lingard's played 2 months of football, he will pick him. Because he always goes to his men. So if Jesse's got a couple of months under his belt, he's in that England squad. It's quite simple with Southgate.
Especially
we know what he's like.
With the Euros last year, I think he's that type of manager that'll think about that as well.
Yeah, he is. He's a manager who we at Man United definitely do not need. He's another one of them sentimental ones that belongs at international level, Southgate. And he's doing a fine job there. If he comes down into club football again, I think he'll get found out very quickly. Gareth Southgate.
Massively.
Anything different to add to that, Levin, on Lingard here in a year?
I've said it before, man. He just needs to move on for the betterment of his career. Just time to go.
I tell you what, I think it's interesting because I'm gonna I'm going to throw a cat amongst the pigeons, and it might not be a very popular cat, but I just think if they gave him, and United are stupid enough to do it. They are stupid enough to chuck 150 grand a week at him, and I don't mean it because he's a bad player. He's just not 150 grand a week. So, but three, all three there. I'll go to 11 again on the next player. Probably a more intriguing one. Donny van der Beek, is he going to be here in a year's time?
That's an interesting one. I'd like to say yes. I would like to say yes, but I could also see a world where it's no. And I know people might go, what are you on about? But the reality with Donny is he is somebody that obviously we know wanted to leave already. And rightfully so, just wasn't playing enough football. And I think people have the belief and the hope that under Ralf, he is going to play a lot more. And I like to believe that as well. But the one thing that I could see, and it totally depends on what Ralf does, but if Ralf does just see Donny as being one of the 210s in his system and not someone who can play in the pivot, Donny just won't get as much game time as he wants and he will just leave. Like, it's as simple as that. Because at the end of the day, he's not going to get in one of those 10 positions. We've known for ages now that we just have so many players to accommodate there. And there are quite a few players there that you would play ahead of Donny anyway, regardless of just biases or whatever. So yeah, if he's not playing in that pivot, he probably is going to leave because he just won't be getting the playing time he wants and deserves as a, the wonderful talent he is.
So in a year's time, Levin, yes.
In a year's time for me, yes. But I could see a world where he's just not here.
Yeah, I think he's spot on. I think it's we knew he was going to go in January under Ollie, so things had been put in place, and it really is about how much game time he gets between now and the summer. Beth, will he be here in a year or no? Yes or no?
I think he will be, and in an ideal world, I do want him to be. I think everyone knows I am quite a big Donny fan, and I've said it time and time again. I think if we buy a midfielder, possibly, I mean, I can't say because I've not seen much of him, but from what I've been hearing, what I've been looking at this week, for example, a Kamara, that type of midfielder, I do think it is very possible to play Donny in that pivot under Ralph's system. And I think that's where he'd probably be best suited. I think he'd do a good job in the 10 role with Bruno as well, to be fair, making them late runs into the box. I'd like to see him given a bit more of a chance there. And I definitely think as a squad player that's coming in and out of the team, consistently getting game time, he could be a very good player for us and be one of them reliable players. So, and Ralph has said that he does rate him, sees him part of his plans. So I think Donny will be here. And I think if we get in a manager, a respected manager, a very good manager that knows his football, that is similar values to Ralph and kind of that the technical players. I do think he will end up staying. So I think it depends what type of manager we get in, but if it's the right type of manager, I think he'll definitely be here next year.
I mean, I'll tell you what, forget Donny, Adam. We'll get into one of the questions. Colin says, would Rangnick be able to make Andres Pereira into a player or is he a hopeless cause? There's a nice question for you.
Thanks, mate. I was getting my Donny pitch already and everything then, but Pereira is one of them. Pre-season Pereira, my God. The guy's awesome in pre-season, isn't he? But he's just one of them players that's been around for so long that I don't think Rangnick's got the time to turn him into a player. I don't think he gets in the starting 11, so what's the point? You know what I mean? I was going to say this about Donny van der Beek. Donny van der Beek, I can see going. The same reasons the likes of Pereira, because he, at the moment, the way Rangnick's playing it, it's like, where does he get in this first team? And where do these players see themselves at? If they admit that they are squad players, which not many players do these days, because they all think very highly of themselves, then there's no point. There is no point. I mean, I think Donny's a first-team player, but he's not putting him on, even when he's on as a sub, he's not putting him on in the positions I thought he would, which is where McFred play. It's for the Sancho and the Bruno role. And then I'm thinking, whoa, you're never going to get a start. He's never going to get a start because you're not going to take Bruno out and you're not going to take Sancho out for Donny. That is abundantly clear. They are better players. And where does Donny see himself? That's what I would say. Pereira, I don't think anyone... He just needs to be let go. Get rid, go, because Rangnick hasn't got the time. If it's 6 months or it's maybe a year past that, I think someone else will come in before Pereira even comes back into the team, and will be another player in the way. So through sheer numbers, no, I don't think he can turn Pereira into a player. He has got skills. We've seen his goals, and they usually always do come in pre-season. But I'm not hearing anything of him since he's left on loan at teams. Kind of says it all. He's just not good enough for Man United.
Yeah, and just to add on Donny, I probably would throw... I think he'll be gone in a year as well, only because I think it should be a 50-50. I think he could be here. But the thing that Donny's got to do is establish a space, because if in a year's time he's still doing what he's doing now, he will have gone. He's got to establish a spot, and that spot cannot be one starting four. He's got to be, a first teamer, because he'll be a first teamer.
He's nearly lost 2 years of his career, mate, already.
Yeah. I just don't think he can afford to take a risk. And we've seen that with Martial, to be fair. I mean, look, let's get into some of the questions, because we could talk about players and whether they'll be here all night. And there has been quite a few questions coming in. There was one from Kenneth about whether we should do a deal with Sevilla for Martial for Koundé, which I will ask you about, Levin. But ultimately, Martial is a player that some of us, myself, was a little bit confused about for a few days, where I was like, well, why are you going? You've not even trained under Rangnick yet. We're playing with the front two. But I think there is a player who's gone, I can't afford at 25, 26 to spend another year finding out whether I'm going to get used. There's a World Cup next year. I've already missed one. If I go to Sevilla, I'm going to play.
Yeah. They lost their striker. They're in need of a striker. Speaking of Koundé, he got a red card. It's quite silly, but...
Was that for throwing the ball at thingy?
Yeah. Understandable, but it was a bit silly. Look, I've seen people say this as well, Mark. I've had people actually ask about it directly, and I think people underestimate, Koundé is a player that seems like he probably will be on the out from Sevilla eventually. Obviously, there have been some teams that have probed, and maybe this season is the season, or next summer, I should say, is the summer where they're going to finally let down. But typically what it's been with teams that when they get Koundé is pay the 70 million release clause, or you can't have him, right? And so assuming they do that again, I just don't see a world where they're swapping, Martial and Koundé, even if we were to add a bit more money. I think they are probably going to still stick on their 70 mil or nothing. I think Sevilla would be a great fit for Martial. If we're looking at it from Martial's perspective, I think it'd be a great fit. They obviously need a striker. They lost Luke de Jong. They play a really, really nice brand of football where I think it probably does fit his skill set, his ability to sort of hold up the play players in. Typically, they like to cross a lot. When they had Luke de Jong, and he's not aerially dominant by any means, but I'm sure Lopetegui would adjust things in their system. But anyway, we're not talking about Sevilla. I think it would be a good fit. I don't think we're going to see a swap deal be done with Koundé. I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to see him linked to Sevilla, because I think it just makes a lot of sense for him.
On to a different question. A lot of people, Beth, talking about Haaland, getting Haaland in the summer. What was your thoughts on that? I mean, there's the whole Riola thing. There's probably the whole packet. I mean, people think he's a bargain because he's got a 70 million release clause. You'll be paying that and more.
You'll be paying an extra 70 million.
Yeah. It's not going to be cheap. But is that the sort of deal United should be going for? Do you think we will? Would it be a good deal to bring him to United? What do you think?
It's a tough one for me because I keep going back and forth on it. When you say, do you want Haaland at Manchester United, your automatic response for a lot of people would be yes. And he is a great talent. He's going to be he is an amazing striker, but he's only going to get better. He's young, he's physical. I think he'd be good in the Premier League. That relationship with Sancho would be really interesting to see. And I think he would score a lot of goals for us. And I think he would massively improve our team, 100%. But there's pros and cons to him. Obviously, him as a player, you're never going to say no. But it's the Riola thing that puts me off. It's the fact that you're going to have to, if Pogba does leave in the summer, you're done with Riola then, and then bringing him back into the club, it's going to be Pogba 2.0. Every international break, it's going to be, well, Haaland is thinking about moving to Real Madrid, and that whole saga's coming up, and he'll demand the highest wages going. So I think Haaland will end up probably being just behind Ronaldo as the highest paid player at the club. That's massive wages again. I think it takes up a lot of the transfer budget, so there's not going to be other positions that need some work, to be honest. I think we still need a few more positions and depth in a few more positions to ensure that we're fully secured for next season. So, I mean, I love the idea of getting Haaland the player, but the deal altogether isn't as good as a lot of people think it is. But if we went and got him, I wouldn't complain. I think he'd be a great signing for us. And the more important thing is, I mean, you shouldn't buy players just because you're scared of him going to other clubs. But God, if he went to City, like, again, the league's just wrote off again for next year. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But then when you look at that player like Alvarez from River Plate, I mean, we don't know much about him yet. He might not be good enough, but say that's going to be about 20 odd million, and you're looking at a player like that and you're like, wow, you could get him in. He could be really good. He allows for Greenwood's development, because again, you think about Greenwood, he could end up getting pushed out if Haaland comes in. You allow for Greenwood's development. You've got Ronaldo there who knows he's top dog still, and it kind of equals out the balance more. You're allowing young players to progress, and you've got more of a transfer budget to spend on other positions. So it just depends on what people's priorities are. But I mean, I wouldn't say no to Haaland, but I wouldn't be absolutely gutted if we didn't end up getting him.
I'm going to go around with this one because I think it's quite interesting. For me, it's a very quick no, not because I don't rate the player. I just know the plan with Haaland. He'll come in, Raiola will stir the pot for 3 years and then he will go. He's got a very definitive plan for Haaland. He's going to be the next Zlatan. United fans are in love with bringing players to the club who then fall in love with the club and stay for a decade. That will not happen. He will say it will happen and it won't happen. And I think the benefit the benefit will not outweigh the negativity. And look, so for me, it would be a no. If he was not managed by Raiola, it would be a definite yes. Adam?
We spoke about this the other day as well. It's one of them, innit? You just weighed up everything.
Oh,
good. How is Raiola? Sorry, what was that then?
No, you just dropped a minute.
Dropped back again. There you go. It's like how much power Raiola will have under the new laws that are coming in, but he's still a leech, and he's still that man that's taken this club for a ride several times. I understand what it is, and at the end, he's the one who's going to be pulling the strings again. He's the one who's going to be putting Haaland in a position where Pogba is now, where there's an offer on the table, and they're just stringing United along until someone comes in and offers something more. It's like me. I said I'd take Pogba's deal off the table right now. Do I want that scenario to come again with Haaland? Would we win anything in the 3-4 years he was at the club? It's a good chance. I don't know. I mean, I want Greenwood to progress. I do like the look of some of the younger strikers coming through. I would prefer, if you offered me a Bellingham or a Haaland, I would take a Bellingham. That's a good point.
That's a good point.
Well, yeah, because it ticks more of a box for many people.
For us, it's what we need, isn't it? I said at the start, should United go into this transfer window this season, buy the players that we need, not the shiny fancy thing in the window that's just appeared on offer that you don't really need, but it looks good. Let's get that as well and put that in the basket. It's just prioritize what you need and forget about everything else. Can we do that? Can we do that for a summer? Rangnick's the man to do it. I do think that, and hopefully we just get the player that we need. So on that side of it, I would say, well, Haaland is a no. Priorities are elsewhere.
Interesting that, Levin, because I want to ask you about Haaland, but of course, Adam's probably right. It probably wouldn't be the sort of signing Rangnick would go for, apart from the fact that he's got good connections with Haaland deals from his time involved with Salzburg.
Yeah, I think Haaland is a good signing, regardless. Like, the thing about Erling Haaland is, I get the aspect of, like, you don't make certain decisions. You buy for what you need, etc., etc. The problem with Haaland, he's in this category of player now where the strategy, and I don't just think it'll be us or Man United, but I think the strategy from any team in any league that he's in that is of the caliber that can get him is, he's so good that you get him so that other teams don't have him. And there's certain things in football that I like that. It happens with certain managers, certain players, where it's like, the strategy almost becomes you get them just so that other teams can't have them.
And with Ronaldo, aren't we?
And the thing is, right, even if it isn't always the right fit, ideally you have the people in place to make that work. And so you gave the example of Ronaldo. Now, Ronaldo definitely was that, right? Where literally we weren't linked to a striker. You know, we weren't really linked to Ronaldo like that at all. But it was like he became available. We can't afford for City to have him, so let's get him. Now, initially, we didn't have the people in place who could make that work. But hopefully now with Rangnick, we will start to see it work, you know, better. And I think Haaland is one of those people where, you know, most clubs will see it as that. We already know there are clubs in the Premier League who actively have tried to get him. And one of the big things as well that I think people don't think about much is, you look at the Premier League right now, it's dominated by Pep, it's dominated by Klopp. Those guys, we literally know those guys are leaving in a couple of years. And so my mentality now is almost switched where everything I think about now is like, of course, yeah, I want us to compete over the next couple of years, but I think it's almost more important that you have your squad ready for that one season where Pep and Klopp are gone. I don't know if they're leaving at the same year. Maybe it's going to be a year difference. But when at the very least, Pep, right? That year when Pep leaves, regardless of whether Man City replace him well enough or not, you can expect there to be an adjustment period. And that's when you want to make sure you have your squad ready. And ultimately, you know, having Erling Haaland in your team for that when that time comes, probably not really going to be a bad thing, is it? You know what I mean? Like, I doubt you're going to be complaining.
Do you know what I mean? Won the title where everybody was just going through transition and they were like, yeah, we're ready, you know.
Exactly. And I think that time is going to come soon. So we got to be ready for that.
I agree in that I think Haaland would be a great signing, but the only thing that bothers me is how Haaland comes in the summer, he's out of question, really. He's not going to play.
I don't necessarily think so.
Yeah, but he's not going to start any games, is he?
I don't think so. I get why you say that, and I think maybe that could happen, but I actually think we're starting to move towards a world where realistically, so okay, look, you look at this 4-2-2 system. One, I don't actually think the system is going to be something we do long term, and that's why I wouldn't be surprised if the signings we make aren't geared to this system. I can expect us to see us play, you know, a shape that is more common of the modern top sides. Yes, of course, 4-3-3. And if that was to happen, you look at long term, right? So our left wing options right now, most people say our number one left wing option is Rashford, conventionally based off what we've seen over the past year. But he's sort of been on a downhill trajectory. After Rashford, technically our best left wing option is Sancho, and he's played there and he's been very familiar there. Let's say you're in a world where Ronaldo wasn't in the picture for whatever reason, because maybe we're 2-3 years down the line. Rashford's still not where we want him to be. You've brought in Haaland. You could just play a front three of Haaland, Greenwood, and Sancho. And ideally it'd be a Greenwood that's 3 or 4 years down the line. Now, in theory, that could work. I don't think bringing in a striker automatically just dispels Greenwood. I think you could be concerned about whether he's going to get enough time to play, but it doesn't instantly mean that. Martial's on the out. Rashford's not been amazing, so you could move Sancho to the left and play Greenwood off the right still. That could be a possibility.
Yeah, 100%. If we did have Haaland and Greenwood, I'd be absolutely fine with that. I think I think Greenwood would get more than enough game time. It's just the fact in this, if we signed Haaland in the summer over the course of the next season while Ronaldo is still there, if you're looking at the striking options and the front three options, I do think it does become limited space for
you got to look at it. You got to look at it as well. It's like the
season missing out.
Progression stage of where Greenwood's at now. He needs games now, and if he has to take a bit part season, then it can deter a player completely, and then they go off.
There are rumours around Greenwood already.
Oh, this is what I mean. It can sort of deter it. That one season of ifs and buts, because let's be honest, Ronaldo, and we're talking this summer, so Ronaldo's still going to be here next year. Greenwood definitely doesn't start if Haaland comes in. That's 100% guaranteed, because Ronaldo will play, Haaland will play, and then Greenwood misses out. And we've all seen what happens to players' confidence if you don't play for a year. You need to be consistent. If you're that good, and we're saying Greenwood is this good, then he needs to play. It's that simple. Otherwise, is he that good? I think I've seen enough to say, look, Greenwood has got something. And he needs to play. He needs to be playing consistently every week.
That's where he needs to play.
He does. And if Haaland comes in, then Ronaldo and Haaland take them roles, and Greenwood does not play. And then again, lost him.
Then again, you know, if you're playing with the front two, you can't just have two strikers. You know, last 20 minutes, one comes on, does well, scores a goal, starts the next game, 60-game season. You need 4 strikers anyway. If Greenwood's the third striker, he'll still play a lot. And then It's whether you can bench Haaland or Ronaldo. That's the challenge.
You don't. That's the problem. Any
okay,
big game, you never mention him.
What I would say to that though is, look, I get that, and I think that's a very fair point, Adam. But I'd also say, one, technically, we're already in a situation like that now, where, like,
so
if
we're
it
writing him off, then, aren't we?
Well, no, I'm not saying we're writing off Greenwood, but I'm just saying that we're technically already in a situation now where Greenwood isn't actually like number one starting option. Maybe he should be based on form. I think he should be, right? But like, I don't really think he is. So like, we're already in a situation where like Greenwood isn't necessarily guaranteed playing time week in, week out. I don't necessarily think that means he will never get enough playing time to help his development, right? Like Mark sort of alluded to it. He still will get plenty of time. I think even it very much depends on the shape and system you play. I think in a two-striker, if we were to keep this 4-2-2, even if we were to get Haaland, I think you'd still ideally have enough space to play Greenwood enough to not hinder his development. I just think you at that point though, you're going, okay, but long term, like I get what you're saying. In terms of the actual squad, the way it would look, it would be messy, and we've seen what a messy attacking lineup looks like. We've had that already, where we've gone, we don't have space for more attackers, right? But ultimately, you know, again, it will just come down to, can we afford to not get Haaland, even if it is just he's going to be here for the next 5 seasons? That's just 5 seasons of hell for us, right? Like, I feel like that's where you're going to. And when you get to that point, I feel like it just swings either way.
It'd be interesting to see what happens, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with Mason Greenwood, because I think he's a fantastic player. Couple of questions to get through at the back end of the show, quite good ones actually. Next one is, who's your ideal centre-back pairing? I'm just going to throw a goose amongst the pigeons and say Maguire
Careful
and
Careful them geese, mate.
I know. Maguire and Varane. Maguire and Varane are our best choice centre-back. Beth. Oh no, Adam, I don't think you've been first on anything yet.
Maguire, when he's playing right, yeah. But I'm like, are we going to?
Who would be your first choice centre backs, right? You know, for this game against Newcastle, everyone's fit.
Bailly Varane, all day long. Bailly Varane all day long, because Maguire's playing shit. I'm not one for reputation, and people always say, look, form is temporary, but you can lose 3 games in a bad run if your form's not good, guys. And I think Bailly, I think he's the one player who's been more patient than anyone in terms of getting his shot. And yeah, you could look at it and he could have that moment. He could have that meltdown moment when he dives in. But let's not forget, he's got all the attributes you need for a centre-back. He's braver than Maguire and Lindelof put together. He's quicker than both of them put together. And if you can coach him, which you can't add bravery to Lindelof's game. You can't add the brain cell to Maguire on occasions. You know what I mean? You are what you are in that department, but you can coach positionals. You can coach players to make the right option when you're going forward. Bailly's biggest criticism is he's a bit erratic. He sometimes tries to do things he shouldn't. He try and take one player on, then go back and try and take him on again when he should have already played the ball out. That's what Bailly is. You can coach that out of a player. You can't get someone to go put everything on the line, do a big triple Selco and take it in the knackers like Bailly does. You can't teach that to Lindelof and Maguire. They won't have that. I think there's more of a player to be coached in Bailly than there is out the other two. Varane is the staple. He's just world class. He's the Rolls Royce. And someone with that experience, which Lindelof, which Bailly's never had next to him, of that quality, I think that will help him as well. So for me, I think he's earned his chance through the form that he's in right now in a couple of games he's played. And I think he should be the one that partners Varane. I don't think it'll happen, but for me, that's where I would go.
It's interesting, Levin, because I have gone with Maguire and Varane probably because I know that's what it's going to be. Yeah. I can't argue with people changing that, but then is this not where Rangnick evolves? Or do you think some things you can't evolve, i.e. an £80 million captain of the club?
Yeah, I think it'll be Maguire and Varane. And I know Maguire's been in bad form. Like, I totally get that. Like, it's understandable. But I said the same things about other players this season, and I'll say the same thing about Maguire. I said to people when Fred was in bad form, look, this isn't who he is as a player. He's just playing really bad. And whether he'll ever get back to the form we know he can play at or not, eventually it will get better than this. And I think with Maguire, that will be the case as well. again, look, £80 million, he should have never been that price, and it will always be held over him, and he will never be able to live up to that expectation, in my opinion. Like, he just won't.
No,
but you look at, of course not. But you look at what Maguire was for us in many parts of last season, especially. We relied on him a lot in terms of progression, moving the ball up the pitch, even though we struggled much with that because of our midfield options. And he does that better than most centre-backs in the Premier League, right? Every single number will point towards that. Aerially is very dominant as well. And hopefully under Rangnick and this coaching staff, we can start getting stuff out of him from set pieces. So yeah, I think we'll continue to see Maguire be played, and hopefully he gets back into form. I do, of course, want to see more of Eric Bailly. I think I still feel really frustrated with the whole Bailly getting a new contract thing from Ollie. And I know I don't want to talk much about Ollie because Ollie's not here anymore, but like, it never made much sense to me where like we gave him a new contract when Ollie never really intended to play him. You know, he could have moved on somewhere and done great things. We know what Bailly is as a centre back at this stage in his career. So it's a shame. I think you could probably make the same case with Lindelof, because I think it probably will be Maguire and Varane. But if I'm Lindelof, I'd feel very hard done by. Ultimately, all the other centre-backs have sort of been in and out of the team. Bailly's probably hit bigger like peaks this season in terms of form. But like in terms of just consistency for us this season, Lindelof's been there for us when we've needed him. Like, he's been solid almost all the times he's been relied upon or called upon. So he'll probably be thinking, damn, man, like, I didn't really put much of a foot wrong and I can't really get in now. So I think for both of them, Bailly and Lindelof, they'll probably both feel hard done by. They probably both deserve to play more minutes, but I just don't think it'll happen.
It's interesting because I think, Lindelof and Bailly have put in the sort of performances that you would expect to be challenging, but I really just don't think it will be Beth. I think it will be Maguire and Bailly. The one thing I would say about Maguire is, look, he has been poor. I acknowledge everything everybody's saying in the chat and on the show, but having played the game, watched the game, the amount of headers he wins from corners, I'm not joking. Next time you play an 11 against 11 and there's a corner, stand there and try and win even 60% of them. It's not easy. And he's bloody good at it. The problem is when it hits his head, he's crap at it. He's brilliant at winning the headers. And if someone can just teach him the easy bit, which is actually directing the header, he's so good at winning headers. And I will give him his dues there. He's absolutely brilliant at that. But yeah, what do you think, Beth, is our best centre? Would be your best centre back pairing?
See, mine would be Varane and Lindelof. I rate Bailly. I think he's a good player, and I think he deserves a lot more game time. Maguire on his day would get in, but the only problem is it's very rare that he has one of them days nowadays, especially for Manchester United. He has been inconsistent for a very long time, and I've not seen him put in a very good performance in a long time as well. And Lindelof, for me, he's a reliable centre-back. I think he's massively improved. I think over the past couple months, he's been solid. He's been quietly one of the better players, massively. I think he's not really put much of a foot wrong. And I also think a thing that's underrated about him is the way he plays out from the back. A lot of people say Maguire plays out well from the back. For me, Maguire plays out too slowly, too predictable. I like Lindelof. He puts balls into Rashford that are very underrated. He's done it a lot of times now. He has got quite a few assists for a centre-back. And I do think next to Varane, it could be a very, very good partnership. Varane gets in just because on merit, he's a class above all of the centre-backs we've got. But for me, it's hard to pick between Lindelof, Bailly, Maguire. But I don't think Maguire deserves the amount of first team spots he gets purely because of his price tag and because he is captain. I think on his day, and the player that we've had for England, he's a good centre half. When he plays for England, he would get into Manchester United's first team any day of the week. But the problem is his performances have been so inconsistent, and he's not suited to every team. If you've got a fast striker up front, Maguire gets found out a lot of the time. And for me, at the moment, based on form overall as well as players, has to be my personal preferences for Varane and Lindelof.
I think you know what, you make a great point, because actually, if you take the price tag away, you take the captaincy away, and you judge the partner of Varane to be Maguire, Lindelof, or Bailly on a level playing field, Maguire ain't going to win every time. Some people will go with him, but I guarantee you, a lot are not going to go with him, and that poses a question for United themselves. I agree with Beth. He gets way too many starts for his form. because of what? His price tag or his captaincy? I actually would go with Maguire and Varane. I would go with Maguire and Varane and see how they go. I would do. So I'm not saying he's rubbish, but I do agree he's always first name on the team sheet, and that probably doesn't justify that. That there is a bias towards him, and I think he's spot on there, to be fair.
With playing the ball out from the back as well, a lot of times he'll take way too many touches. He'll slow it down. He'll put people under pressure by giving him hospital passes. Sometimes he's good. I think he gets more criticised because of what you expect. But I do think a lot of time he has had a lot of criticism, but I think people often say, but he could be this, he could be that, but he needs to start showing it a lot more often. I agree, he could be a top centre back, but he just doesn't show it enough.
I think that point in particular is very unfair to Maguire, just because you look at over the past year, we very much relied on him to carry the ball up the pitch from that centre back position. And I'm sure we all have multiple memories in games where he gets the ball and he's like running with the ball past Fred or McTominay, whoever it was in the pivot, and moving the ball forward to other people when our defensive midfielders couldn't do it. Like, I get the whole slow playing out from the back thing, but sometimes I think more context is needed. So like in the Norwich game recently, right? I did the watch along with Kev, and there was a moment where like he passes it backwards and he slows it down and passes it backwards. And at first you look at it and you go, why has he done that? Like, Maguire, he's so rubbish. Like, why has he just done that? When I went back and watched the game, I actually realized he just had to, because the players ahead of him weren't in position to receive the pass. So if he had forced it and, misplaced a pass that wasn't on, people would have hated on him and gone, why has he done that? So actually the better decision was to just pass it back. I think sometimes context is needed. I think he's not been great, but again, I'm going to keep saying this. And I feel vindicated saying this just because it literally is what happened with Fred. I think a lot of people are like convinced that this is who Maguire is. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that he's not always been this bad. Like, remember at the end of last season when he got injured and we were like, damn, we actually don't have Maguire for the Villarreal game. Like, we started to rely on him. Like, that's the truth. And I don't think that player is who he consistently is. He's never consistently been that guy, but we know he can be that guy. He was that guy for us for a period of time. So I hope he can get back to that
guy before he came to us, mate, as well.
Exactly.
I remember being at Old Trafford watching Maguire bring the ball out from his own box for Hull, take it all the way to the edge of our box and actually have a shot. The guy has got qualities on the ball. And you said it then, within the tactics, within the way teams are playing. I think the way Ollie was running it towards the end didn't help any player. He made a lot of players look pretty bad. And again, like we said, when Rangnick came in, I think each player deserves a shout and deserves a chance under him. It's going to be interesting who survives, because not all of them are going to get what they want, and that's when the interesting decisions for Rangnick are going to come in.
We're going to end the show with this.
Go.
Kev's on the clock, I think. I saw his picture earlier on Instagram. He was watching only 40 minutes.
He's on the lash.
He's on the lash. He's on the fizzy stuff. And
Big up Kev, man.
It ain't lemonade. But I'd love to know what Kev's favourite one is. If we can put a reply in, and we'll post it up. But favourite Christmas song. Anyone want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go.
You go.
Oh, go on.
Mine's from a bit of Shaking Stevens for me. That's my favourite one. I love that one.
What's that one?
Merry Christmas, everyone, isn't it?
I love that one.
Yeah.
Go on then, Levin. Did you have one ready?
I have two on my mind. I was just singing before you came, and it was just us three here. I was singing Michael Bublé's "It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas" because I just love Michael Bublé.
That wasn't singing, Levin, mate. Like that wasn't singing. That was.
I can imagine Levin's got a good voice for this.
It was singing, Adam, but we people. I can. You know what? I can sing for you guys. You know what I mean? Like, I can. But the other one, Paul McCartney's one. What's that one like? Where he's like, I forgot the name of it.
Christmas time.
Simply Having a Wonderful Christmas. I love that
Snap. That is my favourite. So
I love that. I love that one.
I love the video when they're in the pub. It just reminds me of on Christmas Eve doing the conga with strangers.
Videos win a lot of these bets, don't they? The videos do win a lot of these.
Yeah.
Beth, go on then.
I've got a few. I quite like Last Christmas.
Yeah.
It's a good one, isn't it? And I like driving home for Christmas. You know, when you're in the car over Christmas and you like going doing your shopping.
I don't like it when I'm in a traffic
or like
jam.
you're driving back from uni. I like that one. They're all good, but they all get recycled. We need a few new ones.
I'll tell you what's not bad. I thought it was absolute shit, and the more it might just be because I've heard it a few times now. The Elton John and
I've not heard it.
Kevin De Bruyne one. It's all right.
Kevin De Bruyne. Oh my god.
I can't remember how it goes now.
And shit, I've not heard it.
Playlist on now,
but it's number one. I saw there was some controversy around it. I don't know why, but I did see like people talking about it on Twitter.
Band-Aid's very good for an old classic. Yeah, Band-Aid is very good.
The original.
And you can't beat a bit of Slade. Are you hanging up your stocking on the wall? So yeah, some crackers.
No, you can't.
We'll all be listening to them tomorrow. Anyway, look, that's the last live forum before Christmas. We will have content for you over Christmas, of course. We've got the preview tomorrow and some stuff tomorrow, and obviously, hopefully, going to get a lot of games after Christmas. 3 games in a week. Hopefully.
God, please.
But
people in the comments asking me to sing. You don't want to hear it, honestly. You really don't. You really don't want to hear it.
No,
we'll have a get together next year. We'll sell tickets, and Beth will stand up and do a 5-minute.
Oh, that would be.
I don't want you to be deaf over Christmas. I don't. I'll save that. I'll save that for the full live experience.
Anyway, have a fantastic Christmas, Beth.
I will do. Everyone have a good Christmas. Everyone in the chat, you guys, and I'm sure we'll speak relatively soon. Football's around the corner. United's coming back, hopefully. It'll be a good Christmas, and bring on 2022. We'll see what happens.
She's done New Year and all. She's having a week.
She said everything. Now until January 1st. That is it.
Couple of games yet before then.
Levin, Merry Christmas. Thanks for coming on.
Merry Christmas. It's been a pleasure. It's been a good year. Whatever Beth said, that's me. Whatever Beth said, I said.
And Adam, hopefully you'll be travelling to Newcastle on Monday.
Yeah,
not to stay in a hotel with no match like you did for Brentford.
I've booked my hotel, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to just sit in a pub after the game and have a drink, talking about the game as well. But yeah, Merry Christmas to everyone. All have an absolute mint one, and we'll see you for the Newcastle game. Yeah,
and I'll be back in the morning. Don't worry about that. We'll have a morning show. But as far as forums go, it's Merry Christmas from all of us, and we will see you after Christmas on the next forum. And I hope you all have a safe, happy, and healthy one. And if you don't like Christmas, good for you. But we do. So we are going to celebrate it, as is our right. And then, I'm not eating goose. And if you know the joke, you know, but I'm not eating goose. I lost that one. Thanks everyone for watching. See you in the morning. Take care.